Now, it is, of course, Wednesday, and we like to do a program on Your Money Matters called Wellness Wednesday. And you're probably wondering why we're talking about wellness and health on a money-related show. Well, it's really simple. We speak about how you can earn more money through the week, but we also want to get you information that will help you live a healthy life so that you can enjoy the fruits of the labor that you have over the several years that you will be working and earning and investing. So join me today to talk about what I think is a very, very important subject is Dr. Guru Prasad Shetty, who's a lead HBP and liver transplantation surgery at Apollo Hospitals. Doctor, thanks so much for taking the time. And I'm speaking to you about a survey that Apollo Hospitals did not too long back, in which, correct me if I'm wrong, 65% of the respondents in that survey had fatty liver, and 85% of those were from non-alcoholic causes. First and foremost, what is fatty liver? Why does it occur?
Thanks, Alex, for having me on the show. Yeah, that's true. Actually, this is what Apollo has published is only the screening that has happened in the Apollo organizations. So you must understand that this problem is actually much bigger than what we are looking at, than what the Apollo report is. Now, these are people who have come through screenings mostly for their health checks and then got screened on ultrasounds and then been picked up with fatty liver. Now, you have to understand that fatty liver basically is just a difference in the imaging that is done on ultrasound, and the liver is viewed or comes up looking differently on that ultrasound. There are many causes of fatty liver. Basically, it is deposition of fat in the liver. Now, deposition of fat in the liver doesn't happen exclusively. It happens as a generalized condition. It will happen, there will be deposition of plaques in your blood vessels, there will be deposition of fat in the liver, there will be diabetes, obesity. This is all encompassing a larger condition which is called as a metabolic syndrome, a metabolic associated dysfunction, where you have many such offshoots which are seen during the screening process. Why fatty liver is becoming more and more obvious is because of these screening processes. More and more people are taking up insurance, is penetrating deeper into the country, into the population. So it's being picked up as a matter of screening, and then the causes are being allocated. Now, previously, viral hepatitis as well as alcohol was one of the prime causes of fatty liver, but gradually and steadily, this has now changed its trajectory towards it becoming non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. What it is it's basically fatty liver because of non-alcoholic reasons, and this is more related to either diabetes. It could be hypertension. It's seen in the younger population now, probably because of higher caloric intake food and lesser physical activity.
Yeah, so obesity, doctor, seems to be a problem, and I think your survey also pointed to that. But I want to understand why this is a problem. Why is fatty liver an issue? And I know that a lot of doctors speak about it and saying that, you do your periodic medical examination and you pointed out, okay, your liver has fat deposits. Why is that a problem?
So basically, a liver cell is not supposed to have fat. Now, when there's fat deposition in the liver, it's an abnormality. Now, this, in a small extent, if it's grade 1, probably should not affect anyone, and it doesn't affect also. Till the liver is replaced, almost 50 to 60% of it is replaced by fat. Then you're looking at a problem where there's a lot of inflammation which arises out of this and which can lead further to hardening and stiffening of the liver, where it's called fibrosis, and an end-stage liver disease which is called cirrhosis. Now, once you go into the phase of fibrosis and cirrhosis, it's almost reaching an irreversible stage. So once you go into a cirrhotic phase of the liver, then you need, in the future, you may even require a liver transplant. So you don't want to head that way. So it's better to control it in the initial phases.
Yeah.
Now, and controlling fatty liver is not that difficult. It requires just a few lifestyle changes. It requires some diet changes, and requires you to be physically more active.
I'll come to that in just a bit. But before we do, just to reinforce the point and the importance of the liver, And who better to explain it compared to somebody who specializes in care for that very important organ. Doctor, can you explain to my viewers why the liver is so important in its primary function?
So liver is one of the largest solid organs in the body, and it conducts more than 100 to 150 functions, many of which are completely unseen and unknown, but it is the seat of all metabolism in the body. So anything that you eat, if it has to get metabolized, digested and metabolized, you need the liver to carry out its function. So carbohydrate, protein, fat metabolism, any kind of digestive processes occurring in the body, the enzymes will be secreted by the liver. And detoxification is a very important part from our daily nutritional habits, which needs to be detoxified by the liver. So the blood purification, if you put it as very crudely, then that happens with the liver. And the immune system, or the immune seat of immunity, is also the liver. So basically, these are the, crudely, if you put the large and divided largely, then these are the functions of the liver. So you do realize that becomes almost everything you do, the liver has to take a part in that process.
So would it be wrong to categorize it as the waste processor of the body?
It isn't. It is, in fact, quite rightly put by you. It is, because it requires the liver to detoxify. And if the liver fails, then the side effects of it is what the patient faces. In an acute liver failure, that's exactly what happens, because there's no waste metabolism happening. And then automatically the patient undergoes all the side effects of that.
Okay, so let's talk about cures. Not cures necessarily, but fixes. You mentioned that you can fix this with exercise, with diet. You would obviously have to curtail sugar and a lot of carbohydrate intake. This is my layman understanding. Maybe you can describe this to address a situation of fatty liver. And how long does it take, doctor? This would require concerted effort, wouldn't it?
So, since this is a money matter thing, I'll come from that context. Now, if you see the per capita income of India, it has gone up almost threefold in the last 15 years. So what's happened is people have a lot more disposable incomes, especially the middle income and the upper middle income groups in India. So people are tending to get more executive jobs, which are desk jobs, where they become sedentary in that way. And the food that they are tending to have is usually a high calorie, calorie dense food. Let me put it that way. Nutritional quality may or may not be up to the mark. It's usually on the lower side. But calorie dense is definitely there. So you tend to intake a lot of calorie, and because of your day-to-day activity, which is usually a desk job and not much of physical activity, you don't tend to burn out those calories. So you're always in a positive balance in terms of there's no caloric deficit, you're always calorie positive. So over a particular period of time, people who tend to start working in the late 20s and 30s, as you go into your late 30s, your metabolism will start slowing down. And that's when this whole reversal starts happening, and an occasional drink or two, you have high calorie food, less of activity. And then this whole process of this metabolic dysfunction starts kicking in. So what it's seen as is fatty liver. It could be seen as obesity. It could be seen as young diabetics. It could be seen as young hypertensives. But all this is part of, as I said in the beginning, it's part of a bigger syndrome, and it's all encompassing. Now, if you want to change it, then there are a few steps which you need to take, which is obviously the reverse of what I just mentioned. So you need to watch what you're eating, but more importantly, watch the caloric intake. And the major part of the calories in everybody's diet, especially in an Indian diet, is the carbohydrate base. So it's the rice, it's the chapatis, it's the bread, it's the pasta. So all of this forms a large content of the caloric intake in your individual meal. You tend to take less of proteins, and you tend to, when you want to lose weight, you start avoiding fat, but otherwise fat also contributes to the calories. So you do start focusing on your macronutrient part of your diet. So you try to cut down on the carbohydrate intake, so that the number of calories supplied by that comes down. So automatically your glucose rises less and your insulin rises less. This will also contribute to your overall health in terms of diabetic health, as well as your visceral fat deposition. And when I mean visceral fat, it is the fat which is accumulated around the internal organs, which is a higher risk to more serious diseases as compared to generalized fat.
And ultimately maintaining a calorie deficit, even if it's a small one, over a long period of time, so that it's more sustainable, is the best way to go. Doctor, thank you so much for joining in for this very important conversation today.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, that brings us to the end of this edition of Your Money Matters. Here's to a very healthy life, both physically, mentally, as well as financially. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is NDTV Profit.